Okay, my friends, a brand new day at Mudfossil University. We're going to really start and get into everything. Now, this is the website. I'm putting it back up again. It's been down for probably 5 years or so. Now, this is going to address everything in our past. Understanding the biology, anatomy, chemistry of how this happened, and maybe even when and why as well. Soft tissue preservation. Now, muscle tissue is from giant creatures, and I have giants here, and I am going to go through those giants, and before I do that, I want to prove to you that I have the absolute undeniable proof of what I am saying, including DNA reports and specimens. All right, here's the DNA reports. And there's 3 specimens here that were tested. And I have them in front of me right now. And we will look at them. And right there is a human lung. And it came back tested as human DNA. This was from a giant human fingertip, and I will show you that. And this is from another giant human fingertip. And this was CAT scan. That was CAT scan. Everything's been looked at by anatomists and microscopy. And this is another mud fossil bone, and nobody's contesting that that's a bone. They're just saying, well, how come it's not a bone? How come it looks like rock? How come it looks like mud? This is a mud fossil. That's why. That is the only last bit of bone. It's the onlyest bit of bone left. All right, that's it. That's all that's left. And what happens is this is called nucleophilic invasion. And you say, well, how does that happen? Well, what it is the molecules that were here that are transitional molecules. They are always continuously giving and taking blood and oxygen and nutrients to survive. When they die, they have to transition into stability or rot. If they're in wet, soft mud, platy, polar silicates. Polar means magnetic. And silicates are silicon type things, and they create magnetic little particles. And those particles attach atomically and eventually invade. And when they do, they will eventually create stability. If this stays in a salty solution long enough, and not when I say salty, no. Not like the ocean salty. Like in your body, just above pH 7. Just enough to keep it in that salt range, to do a little bit of ionic transitioning. And then when there was a great flood, it appears, and at that point, all of these things died in this great flood and were preserved in the manner I'm going to talk about in a moment. Now, and then they primarily are all flat. You see how flat that is? And they're all pretty much like that. And they all separated along these fascia planes, which fascia is the things that separate your body, all the organs inside your body, to keep you from being just one big ball of tush. Now, a lot of things died in the flood. I have... well, here, where do you see this? First of all, I have a goose. All right, you see the feather pattern in the goose's head there? See those feathers? Always rotate it in light and different ways of looking at it, and then you can see patterns. You see his bill or the beak or whatever you want to call it? I believe this was a goose, and it died laying flat like this. And again, you see that? That was just like a wet, died flat like this, and then was preserved in the manner I just discussed. And there's his throat and everything. And that was how his head would have been laying like that, and the neck would have broken off. Now, we have no toes. These are new species. And the toes are included inside the flesh. And this is flesh. And I will show you this in the microscope in a moment. We're going to see all this stuff in the microscope. And you will see why I can make these statements. We're going to start off by looking at this bone, which we know is a bone. And then we're going to look at the lung, which we know is a lung. It's being DNA certified. And then we're going to look at all the other things and what this fabric of life is. Because this is the fabric of life. And it's basically fascia. Even though it may be on the surface as skin, or on the surface of lungs, or organs, or fingertips, or bones, or whatever separates something from something else, I am going to call fascia. Even your skin is the same mechanism. It separates you from the rest of the world. And inside your body, your organs are all separated from your blood and everything else, feces and all that stuff, by these membrane fascias. And they are slippery, gooey, and then they all have these balls and anchors. And we're going to see those too. And the balls and anchors are what they're now calling interstitium. And I discovered these in 2012, and I started working with Gil Hadley back then, and we discovered what they were. And nobody knew about this until 2015. They finally discussed. They said, "Oh yeah, we just discovered these balls and these straps." Gil and I had been working on that for years ahead of that. And, you know, this is all research now from mud fossils that now it goes way beyond that. There's new things I've discovered that science totally, absolutely 100% missed. Absolutely, without question, totally missed. And now is trying to dismiss by, you know, they're just embarrassed. Well, I'm sorry. They're going to have to take being embarrassed and live with that, because we're going to go into the world of reality. This is Mudfossil University now. We're going to go to I'm going to start the website back up again, and you know, we're just going to work it here. Now I'm going to need a lot of help on this. I'm going to have people open classrooms, and then, because I'm really overwhelmed, I got to be perfectly honest with you, just doing the research, because not one single thing is correct. Not a single thing is right that we were taught. So what do we have to do? We've got to go back through energy. We've got to go back through our history. Geology, 100% wrong. All of light, all the things Einstein said were wrong. I've shown light accelerating. It is a particle. I think I fully understand now about why our Earth has its magnetic fields and gravity and is overheating, and how the sun's corona is millions of degrees and the surface is only 6,000. There's no way can you explain any of these things with the current Bohr model and the thinking that there is nothing in space other than a big gigantic vacuum, which we know that's wrong. And I have shown now, and with the DNA evidence, proven that there are giants on the Earth. Not only that, health and biology is totally misunderstood. The bacteria in the gut is what makes you healthy. All right, I've shown that's a giant hand, and this is one of the fingertips from it, DNA certified human, 3 feet wide, and that's the little one. And I'm going to show you in a second the fingerprints from the giant big one. We'll see that in a second. All right, I told you that this was DNA certified, and this giant fingertip was DNA certified, and also the other one, and I'll show you the fingerprints in a minute. But let's start by looking at this is the microscope. Now, up above here is what this looks like. You see, this is the tissue of life. Now, this is what's called pleura on a lung. Extremely dense. It's dense pleura. You see how thick and gooey looking that is? That is the fabric that coats the lung. And this was DNA certified. And down here is where all the blood is. There's a red, real bloody area down in here. And we drilled some holes down in here and took blood out. It might have even been right in that area. And had it DNA certified, and it's human. And you see it? Hold on, see it. You see it? And that's the fabric of life. Now, that is the long. Hold on, let me bring this up. Now, this is the fingertip that was from the big hand, well, the smaller of the big hands. The hand is 3 feet wide. Actually, that's the hand right there. That's the hand this came from, and I show it in great detail. And the pad of the hand is there. It's I mean, it's just, it is what it is. Now, now let's look at this, and I will show you the same fabric of life. Let me dial it in here. See, there's the same fabric. Now you see those little black dots? You see those little black dots everywhere? That's the interstitium. And that's what I get a hold of Gil Hedley about. Well, I get a hold of him about everything. But I said to myself, I see this everywhere. It's on everything. It's on all the organs. It's on the skin. It's everywhere. You see all those little dots? Well, we kept going and going and going and going through this until he said, you know, there's a layer of fibers they call the fascia, which I understood the fascia, but I didn't understand his depth of knowledge about it. They now realize these fibers end up going to these balls. These balls are the lock that locks, so your skin can do all this stuff and then come back to where it's supposed to be. The fiber stretches, it comes back. They're all wrinkly looking fibers. And so anyway, that's the interstitium. Very interesting. And this one, we had it, the same thing. Blood came out of somewhere up in here. I broke open a piece. Let me see, got it. Oh, you can't see it. Okay. Now, and then this was also CAT scanned, DNA, and an anatomist. Now, this one here, wait do you see this? This is the giant fingertip. Now, that is actually literally the fingerprint pattern. And I'm going to show you this along with the anatomy. Now, let's look at what this looks like. Same stuff. You see it? Same stuff. All right, this is a little more crystallized. It's the same fabric. Now, this is where the fingerprints are here. You see this? That's, you know, obviously magnified, but that's the fingerprints. You see how that real grippy looking skin is? All those fibers in there? That's what's in your grip skin. Now, this was broken off so that I could get, because I had to take it off of that gigantic fingertip. And now this is on the inside. And this is the thickness, literally the thickness of the grip skin. And if you can see, there's a pattern to this. Now, this is the underside. Same stuff. You see it? Now, let's see if I can find a spot where there's some pretty good blood coming out of it. Well, you see the holes in there? A little hole here and there. Those are all blood vessels. And this is the underside of this grip skin. All right, now let's go look and see what grip skin looks like. Okay, this was the little edge right here was where the fingertip was, the fingernail. It was right there, and I broke it off away, and then it starts to go into the fingerprint pattern. You see this? You see those stripes with the little dots? That's your fingerprints, or not yours, but you see dot, 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 stripe, stripe, stripe. Well, there they are right there. You see dot, dot, stripe, stripe, stripe. There they are. Dot. What can I say? All right, that's grip skin. Now, this is literally, this right here is literally this right here. It's literally the exact same thing ripped off of that fossilized, gigantic, enormous fingerprint. And let me just show you something. Now, I have, or I will be showing in this video, this big fingertip out there, but it's all, what happened was, I had been able to move this when my arm worked. And then I literally caused my arm to stop working, my shoulder. I ripped a tendon out of my shoulder. I had to have it reattached, but I'm never going to try to move this thing again. So where it is now, you can't see it in this light. And this is like 30 inches wide. And this is the fingernail. And what I did was, this was the thing I think I've shown you, or I will be showing you. This was like here. And right after the edge of your skin, next to your fingernail or wherever, it starts to get into the grip skin pattern. All right, which I showed or will show. And that's there. Now, as I show this on my property, I say, oh, I'm going looking for giants. Well, I got them all over my property. This is the bone that creates the bone that is your bone, which is your fingertip bone. And it bumps up against another bone, which is this bone. All right? Now, and I show, something I show out in my backyard, and I say, I don't know what this chunk is, and I think it's a bone in between here. But all of this stuff has the same fabric on. As I showed you, or will show you, this in this grip skin is the same fabric as all the rest of it, and it's the same fabric as the no-toes. Let's look at the no-toe skin right now. Watch this. I'm going to be doing the no-toe. All right, here we go. Get ready. See that? Same stuff. Same. Black is from, hold on. Black is the vein blood, and the red is the arterial blood. Now here's somewhere there's a little more arterial blood, leaking out in this area. And over here is the black blood coming out of the vein area. All right, but other than that, the tissue is the same. The same sort of tissue. Turn up the light a little bit. See? Now, that's the top. Now, let's look at where the toes are. The toes are down in here. You see that? No, you can't. Hold on. This thing's heavy. All right, you see that little strip that's broken off there? That is where the skin covered the toes. The toes are down in there. And then this thing here, this is a very interesting little place too. Now, let's look at where the toes are down inside. All right, here's where the toes are. You see they're black, and that's a lot of tissue. Back up here, that's the covering. That, if you take a belt, you know what, I think I should get my belt and show you, because I looked at it. It's exactly the same stuff as a belt. You know, you'd think this thing was in a shoe. It's not a shoe. That's not a shoe, it's a guy's foot. And we've got a lot of these, not just one. Tishy Egerton has a ton of them. And you see that? I got to get my belt. This is just too good to pass up. Hold on. See that? Isn't that cool? That's the back of the belt. And it's the same fibers as we're talking about in the other things. Now, as you go into different, oops, what's this? Something burnt into there. Now, that's the fibers are there now. genuine leather. You see that? Now, that is exactly the same as this stuff. Only this still has all the little tendon balls on it because it's a giant. You can't see the tendon balls on that belt because it's not giant. And then this is the same strap from the stuff that's on the lung, the pleura. See, isn't this cool stuff? See all the little holes? That's where blood things go through. And here is that shoe, I mean not shoe, the foot that looks like a shoe. You see that? It looks just like that leather. Looks just like that leather belt. Because it's like leather on the surface. Here's the belt. Where is it? Oh. See, there's the belt. Same stuff. You know, and then if you get in certain areas, you get like this real, it changes because the belt must have been running across the stomach or something and up the side. So you get one area that's kind of really tough like this, and then you get other areas that have a little bit of a different texture to them. But it's all, I understand the fabric of life now very, very, very well. Very well. Okay, it's Roger once again. I see him going everywhere all over the world searching. It's gigantic, going into these mountains and streams and rivers and snow and scaling the most dangerous areas. I go to my backyard and I find giants laying everywhere. That's a giant toe, and that's the knuckle, one of the part of the knuckle, and this is the bone ball right there from that knuckle. And on the other side of the bone ball, this is the other part of the bone ball right there. It's hard to see out here if I'm showing this in the right area, but there's right there, yeah, here it is. That's the fabric of the muscle. You can still see it there wrapped around the bone ball. This side eroded much more heavily, as you can see. Now, and then the rest is tendons and so forth. Now, this is a giant toe. And these are right basically on the surface of the earth. Now, that's what it looks like from this configuration. Now, if you turn it over, that's the bottom of the toe pad and so forth. And back here, you can see where, I'm trying to hold this and do this at the same time. That, in the end there, those are the tendon entices over here and over there. Now, and this is a bone from, I believe, the same creature, and it's of course fractured now. And that's the inside of the bone. I've looked at this very well in a microscope. It's quite obvious what it is. And this is the same fabric, which is the fascia, that coats all organs and all bones, and it's very similar to your skin. It has this specific texture to it. That's also, I don't know exactly what it is, but it was some form of a body part. They all are. Here's another one here. I don't know what that is either, but when you look at them in the microscope, once you understand what these things are, it's just, I mean, how they're constructed, the surfaces of them all, you can start to understand more or less what you have. And now we're going to go look at some big ones that are on the other side. These are pretty good size. This is probably from 60, 70 foot, maybe less than that, 50 feet. But I have the hand. The hand is 3 feet wide. And of course you saw the fingertips there. There's my buddy Nero. Hey Nero! Say hello. I got a skunk moved in right there. I hope he's going to stay away. All right. We're going to go. I can smell him out here somewhere. All right. Now, you saw. Come on, Nero. Let's go. You saw on the other side the big toe and stuff. Now, this is on the other side of my property. Come on, Nero, let's go. I think he smells a skunk too. Now, I have like 10 acres of land here, and I have literally zillions of giants. Now, there's a hole right there that I dug, and I believe there's a giant tooth in there, but some animal's taken that over, so I stay away from that. Now, you see these stone fences? You see down there? I have them running all over my property, and every one of these rocks was something, basically. Look, all the way down there. Now, coming up over here, this is as far as I have to go to find giants. The other one is right in my backyard. One of them is under my house. When we dug in to create a new office for my wife there, they put in a very shallow foundation. I think it's only like 4 feet deep, 3 feet, 4 feet deep, something like that. And out of that hole came a giant hand, 3 feet wide. Now out here is where the big fingertips are. Now they're just laying around out here. Oops. Here's one right here. You see that? That's a giant fingertip. And this is the, it's hard to see the pattern of it here. Oh man, this sucker's heavy, forget that. It is the fingertip. Now, from back here, come on, Nero. See in the back, if you could see just like that other fingertip was, to the right and to the left. Hold on, come here. My buddy Nero wants to take off on me. All right, now, you see right here and right over there? Those are the same spots that I showed you on the fingertip or the toe, whatever it was, and this could be a toe. I don't really know, but it's eroded quite a bit. Now the other one, it's over here, in here, which I cannot move. It's just too big to move. Now here is, come here, Nero. If I let him go, he'll take off. He won't come back for a month. Now here's the finger nail. You see that? That's the fingernail. Now back here, I'm having a hard time getting around here, is the same place the back of the fingertip on the other one has. Now, down here, you're not going to be able to see it, I can tell. I had to move this, and I broke that off, down under there, and that's where I took the fingerprints from. But you could see, you could see the pattern a little bit left over on here, the pattern of the fingerprints. And if you could come down this way, they also can be seen just a little bit. You can see the little waffly look to them. Okay, but up here is where the fingernail and all that stuff is. All right, and then again, there's stone walls running everywhere. Everywhere. And all of these things were something. Now, I don't know what they were specifically. But in my world, rocks were originally some form of biology. All right, you see everywhere, there's moss everywhere. all over this whole hill, all the way back, all up the side here, and that's all, right over there was where all the big fingers and so forth were found. But all of this, whenever you see moss like that, a lot of times they say, oh, that's just because it's in the shade. Well, it does help to be shady, but it's not shady out here. It's right in the middle of everything, and it's very mossy. You see it? All right, whenever you see that, in my world, that indicates bloody tissue. There's red blood somewhere close. That's why these patches grow here and there a lot of times. Now, I'm not saying it's every time, but anyway, and they're everywhere. They're everywhere. Now, they cleared these patches, you know, many, many years ago to plant crops here at some point, I'm sure. But these rock walls, they're just everywhere. And when I first did this, there was so much of them and so many different pieces. And there still is. There's just a ton of that. Look at this. We could do that. And they're all over the property. I have 10 acres of the property, and they're just everywhere. Everywhere. All down in the front. And my well, get out of there. There might be a skunk there. Come on. My well over here, right in the back of my property. Right here was my wife's office. And that well right in the back of my property, you can see, that's where the giant's heart would have been. Right? I found the hand and all that stuff right here. Right here under her office. And down the other end of the property was where the feet are. And then up over the other side of the back of the hill is where the other giant is. There's two totally different giants. One of them is at least 2 or 3 times bigger than the other one. And the other one is pretty damn big, 50 feet or more. Okay, my friends, we're starting a new regime here at Mudfossil University. We're going to go into the big whiteboard. And that is it right there. Now, as you can see at the top, if you can see, let me focus this in a little bit. At the top, we are discussing electron flood theory, which is the main theory that led to everything else, which means that everything is constructed of electrons. And then understanding that and the electron invasion process, we discuss mud fossils and how rocks form from soft tissues. And it's a process, and this is the theory, and it's quite well proven now. It's all been DNA tested and certified and CAT scanned and anatomists and all that. Now, biology stabilizes in wet platypolar silicates, basically mud. It's called atomic invasion. When you die, you're no longer moving the products through your body, so everything seeks stability. So at death, the molecules stop exchanging. Everything in your body keeps exchanging molecules all day long, every day until you die. And then they seek stability. Now, either they decay and become invaded and putrefy, or they bond in these aqueous, salty waters. And that's why. If it's left into the air and the oxygen, well, it's all over. Now, the fluids and the minerals in the fluids and the pH levels and how hot it is dictates the final end result. What is in the waters that's flowing through these things? What is the pH? Is it invasive salty? Is it acidic? Is it that type of thing? And then, you know, what will make it most stable? That's what it wants, to find the most stable. Then after that happens, the long soak yields perfectly preserved body parts. They're just like they were when you soaked them, only they have bonded with other molecules. Sometimes they will bond with mud, sometimes they will bond with silicons, sometimes they will bond with iron and different other minerals that are in whatever the conditions that it finds itself in. Now, the blood has extremely excellent preservative qualities. And that's because of the transition metals, which are in the blood, and they collect in your organs and all that business. Now, from the blood, you get mud, and it depends on whether it's still water, it's running water, what the temperature is, what the minerals are in there, what the pH is, if it's up, if it's down. And then there's another thing called telluric currents. Telluric currents are the electricity that flows into the earth all day, every day. It's the absorption of electricity into the earth which flows through all the atomic particles, creating this invasive chemistry. And then it really literally creates a voltage. And then it depends on if it's a salty, if it's fresh waters, and how invasive the molecules become. And then it's a process of stability, then it's a process of drying out, then it's a process of, they are stones. And that's what mud fossils are. And we're going to examine exactly how this process occurs and what the end result is, because I have a lot of end results. And I mean, I have them everywhere. And they are CAT scanned and DNA certified and anatomists and everything. So there's no question about the things that I am presenting. Every now and then, something is obviously speculative. We have to decide, is that what it is or isn't it? But you do that from learning over the course of time what things are by the microscopy, by the chemistry, by the colors, the invasion of the transition metals will lead to all these different colors. It becomes a fairly obvious process after a period of time. And I've spent a lot of time doing this. And I pretty much fully understand the process now. And I fully understand the rocks that I look at. And I fully understand how they got to be what they are. And I fully understand what they are. Now, I don't always understand what kind of species, because we have new species. We have no-toes. We have all kinds of things that need to be investigated, and that's what we're hoping to do, is get some investigation into it and get the academic societies to stop pushing back against knowledge. That's exactly what's happened. They become the anti-education system, is the academics. They're against education.